Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, we are in the United States of America, the state of New Jersey, the little town of Princeton. Why are we here? All to tell you about one of the best universities on the planet, Princeton University. We talked to students, professors, even visited one of them at home, collected a lot of useful and necessary, important information for you in order to motivate you, all in order to tell you how to get in, how they study here, how they spend their free time here. All this in the next few hours on your screens. We're starting.
Начинаем.
Принстон действительно один из
Princeton is indeed one of the oldest universities from the famous Ivy League or the United States in general. It was founded in 1746, even before the Declaration of Independence and the American Revolution itself. By the way, it is very interesting to note that the Ivy League was originally a sports league, and universities competed not in academic performance and wealth, or the coolness of their graduates and professors, but in sports battles. Princeton has a lot to brag about, though, on all those counts. Princeton is the richest university in the world in terms of endowment per student. It's called endowment. An endowment is a treasury, a fund that a university has and manages, invests, grows, and makes money from. At Princeton, it amounts to a record $27 billion. And, by the way, this fabulous fund is managed exclusively by Princeton alumni, such is the tradition. As for the coolness of alumni teachers, Princeton has something to be proud of. 35. Nobel laureates in various fields are in one way or another associated with the university, and not only Jeff Bezos, Francis Scott Fitzgerald, Haruki Murakami, David Duchovny, and, for a second, Albert Einstein, near whose cabin we visited. All of them have either studied, taught, or researched within the walls of Princeton. The huge campus of 200 acres is now the academic home to over 8,000 and over 1,200 faculty members, some of whom we talked to, and we even walked around the university with Slavic Studies professor Michael Wachtel.
Даже погуляли по университету.
Well, friends, we continue to have a pleasant and useful meeting. Michael, we are in East Pine, which is actually the home of the Department of Slavic Studies. Tell us a little bit about this wonderful building.
Well, this building, of course, is not as old as it may look. It was built, well, I don't know exactly, maybe at the beginning of the 20th century. Maybe a little earlier, well, in general, of course, in a different style, as if to show that it is, I don't know, England or something like that. Well, in this building, all national literatures, that is, European literatures, languages, that is, here we have the chairs of classics, that is, ancient Greek, Latino. We also have the chairs of German literature, Slavistics. On the third floor, we have chairs of Romance literatures, which is French and Italian. It is more difficult with Spanish, because there is South America, there is Spain, and the relations are not, how to say it, not as good as one might wish. Well, in general, it's all done in this building, and we like it. By the way, the English literature department is in another building, because it's a huge department, but Slavic studies is small in comparison.
How many years have you been teaching at Princeton?
I've been teaching for 32 years.
How did you get here?
Well, after graduate school, I applied for this place. It was Gorbachev's time. That is, everyone was interested in Russia. This department, that is, there was nothing in this department for almost 20 years. So there were no new professors, and suddenly, at that time, there was such a boom. And they decided to open a place. I applied and got this place, that is, I had to come here. I gave lectures, met with all the professors and with the students. There was no graduate school then. We started graduate school after I arrived. Everything was successful. I was offered this place and I stayed because the place was good.
You went to Yale University. another Ivy League university, and one of the most prestigious universities in America and the world. Tell me, is there a difference between Yale and Princeton? Because we've heard quite often from your colleagues that basically all Ivy League universities are similar to each other in some way. So you have this comparative...
Вот у вас есть этот сравнительный
Right, right. I can even still do that kind of comparative analysis because I was at Harvard in graduate school.
А у вас еще...
Oh, you have a triple analysis, right?
Но я думаю, что...
Well, I think it's said, and I think it's true, that Harvard is, after all, like, I don't know, a corporation. It's such a very impersonal institution. I mean, there are very good people and so on. But the relationship of, say, professors to the university seems to me to be quite...
Мне кажется, достаточно...
Capitalist?
Да, ну и не дружеское даже.
Yeah, not friendly even, and it's complicated at Harvard. For example, we had such a small group of professors, and we met every year, for 3 days and in different universities in different ways. I mean, everybody invited, there were, I don't know, 5 of us probably. I mean, not many. It was inexpensive to invite. At that time, we were discussing contemporary Russian poetry. It lasted maybe 15 years. But when it was Harvard's turn, here was a professor, my colleague. She said, okay, I'll arrange it. And then, it was in principle. I could arrange it in 1 day. I just asked 2-3 people. There was enough money. And Harvard is known to be the richest university in the world. She started already in September. And she wrote to me, here I am starting everything and I think everything is going well and so on. And 6 months later, she wrote that, here we are. We were rejected. Although it was for Harvard, of course, tiny money. Well, just such a principle that somehow we think something is not enough, or something like that. It was funny to me because here these things are done just automatically.
So Princeton is characterized by, well, a kind of soulful approach to faculty and to students.
Да, это Принстон, это...
Yes, Princeton is a small university. I know, for example, not only, of course, many professors, and not only slavists, but I know the dean. If I need to talk to the dean, I can just call, and if not that day, then a day later, 2 days later, I can meet with him. At Harvard, it's far from that. I mean, it's such a terrible hierarchy.
And Yale?
Я был только студентом, поэтому мне трудно судить.
Well, I was only a student, so it's hard for me to judge, but I really liked it. Yale has a reputation for being the best university we have for the humanities, and maybe it is. It's a really good program, although to compare, of course, what I know now with what Yale was 40 years ago, it's not so easy.
40 лет назад мне это не так просто.
If you, like me, have been wondering why 8 of the coolest universities in America are in the so-called Ivy League, then right now you have a logical answer to that logical question. Notice, behind us again is Nassau Hall, the oldest building at Princeton University. As you can see, this building is covered with ivy. Here's the answer. All of the major buildings of all 8 universities. Just like Princeton, the universities are wrapped in ivy.
Университетов, так же, как и Принстонский университет, обиты плющом. Hello, so what's your name?
Mariana.
Mariana, where are you from?
I grew up in Florida.
What department do you study?
I'm studying in mechanical and aerospace engineering.
Wow. Why Princeton?
Why Princeton? Well, I always knew that I wanted to study engineering, and it was kind of between Princeton and another school that would be kind of more technical, more engineering focused, where I would be with a bunch of other people studying kind of STEM things, but I knew that I wanted like a fuller education, somewhere where I could study whatever I wanted.
What were the options?
The options basically came down to University of Florida, which is actually where I live. I live in Gainesville, Florida, Georgia Tech, and here. And I didn't really want to stay home, and Georgia Tech have better opportunities as a student and come out with just a better education all around.
How difficult was to enter the Princeton?
It was pretty difficult. I went to a fairly rigorous high school, so I was used to working a lot, but the pace was just different. Also because I had just spent the entirety of the pandemic, fully locked down. My house we were completely isolated, so I hadn't been in school in person. I did virtual school for the year and a half from the second half of my junior year up until I graduated. So mostly the adjustment was being here in person, studying for, exams in person, all of that. I think the biggest adjustment might have been, though, other than, academics is kind of, everyone has to learn how to kind of work hard, work all the time, but just kind of living independently and being a student while also being a person on campus and being able to balance your studies and why you're here with all of the other opportunities, because Princeton's a very, very rich place.
Hi, Nicole. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Nicole Dankinova. I'm a sophomore at Princeton. I'm on the women's volleyball team, and I'm currently thinking of majoring in psychology.
Why Princeton?
It's the #1 school in the nation. I was really excited about the opportunities I would have after I graduate. It's a different thing to be surrounded by people who are as ambitious as you are and who know what they want from life. So I wanted to surround myself with such people, and I definitely do not regret it.
You're from Bulgaria, right?
Yes.
So what's the difference between the education in Bulgaria and here in USA?
Oh, here it's a completely different level. You get a different experience in terms of campus, friends, social setting. Because in Bulgaria, it's just you go to university, but then you don't spend any time on campus. You just go to the classroom, leave, go home, and that's it. And just the quality of education here, we have some of the best professors. There's no base for comparison.
Was it difficult to enter the university?
It was hard. They're very selective. I came here with volleyball too, so that helped. But I was very focused throughout high school. I worked really hard to keep my grades up. I got a really good ACT score. So it's definitely not easy. Otherwise, everyone else would be doing it.
What did you do exactly to get these opportunities?
So I started the recruiting process because it was during COVID. So I had to send my video materials to coaches. I was talking to a lot of universities and their coaches, and I ended up picking Princeton, and I'm beyond happy for my choice.
Well, friends, it's time now to talk to our native Jangir. Jangir from Kazakhstan. Jangir, tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name is Jangir Murat. I am from Astana, studying at Princeton University on the first year. I studied at Nazarbayev Intellectual School from 7th to 12th grade.
Tell me, please, how did you even manage to get into an Ivy League university, one of the best universities in the world, Princeton?
And well, it's a very long and difficult process. I had my heart set on getting in as early as 9th grade. I knew exactly what I had to do.
You wanted to go to Princeton?
Yeah, I have a story. When I was in first grade, we had a lineup and a class period. Here's first grade, the first time I went to school, and we had a class assembly, and they asked me about my dreams. What do you want to do? I said, I want to go to Princeton. They were like, wow, but that's impossible. You can't do that. Well, I don't know where I got the idea, but I knew for sure that I wanted to take this opportunity where I could go to Princeton, and I did it.
Why Princeton?
Princeton, first of all, is a location. Princeton is located in the city of Princeton. It is a historical city of the USA. This building used to be the capital of the USA, and for a short time it was the capital of the USA. This is a historic building. This is where history was made. This is where the independence of the United States was built. This is where the Battle of Princeton was fought, one of the most decisive battles in the history of the United States. It's an Ivy League university, but Ivy League not in terms of just the prestige, it's the academic opportunities. It's the people who, here are all the people who walk around, these are some of the best minds in the world, and I wanted to be part of this community, and there are great professors here. Let's say Professor Michael, he and all my professors that I have, I really love their classes and lectures, they're very good. And somehow, for me, it's the essence of Princeton. I loved the feeling of this atmosphere of intellect in QIR and accomplishing some goals. There's a lot of interesting clubs here. There's a lot of interesting people here, interesting opportunities academically. Let's say you can do research. There's a lot of opportunities for internships. There's an opportunity stage here abroad. In this building, I'm now studying German every day at 9 a.m. with one of the best German professors in the United States. So it's an incredible opportunity for me. It's exactly what I knew I needed to kind of fulfill my potential and reach my potential.
Development of American education. The feeling is that, while preserving the best traditions, Ivy League universities, despite this, they are very actively innovating, very actively acquiring the very latest, newest equipment for their laboratories. Is that really the case? That is, at the very least, Ivy League universities have managed to find this balance between tradition and innovation.
Yes, of course, without innovations, the university will be bad, of course. Well, it's just like in Russia, nothing changes. And accordingly, education, it's a must. And in order to attract the best professors, of course, we have to do everything for them. That is, we said yesterday that we invited a chemist a few years ago and realized that they are first-class physicists. You have to do a lot of things so that he came here and it happened, he came here and last year he won the Nobel Prize. But this is not done cheaply because, first of all, of course, the salary is serious. But of course, that is not the most important thing. The most important thing is that he needed a first-class laboratory, which is very expensive indeed.
And you said that there is a certain gradation, even among Ivy League universities. Where is it better to enter, say, the humanities? And where is it better to enter the exact sciences? If we take Princeton, where is it better to enter the humanities or the exact sciences?
It probably depends on the department, because, let's say, well, almost all of our departments are good. But we were talking yesterday, I'm far from being an expert. But they say that, for example, if you want to become an engineer, we have a good department, but not the best department. The best department is probably not in the Ivy League U, because we have a relatively small department. There are state universities where there are just a lot of strong professors, and there are more opportunities, let's say. So there are always lists, of course, of the best universities for each subject, and of course, you can't completely trust them. Those kinds of results. But still, they will show something if we are, say, in first place, say, for, I don't know, physics, and if we are in 20th place for engineering, well, that says something.
The town of Princeton, a simple street, Mercer Street. It would seem that what we forgot here, filming one of the best universities on the planet. But here is what? 212, the house where one of the greatest scientists on the planet, Albert Einstein, lived for 23 years, from 1933 to 1955, until his death. He worked here nearby at the Institute for Progressive Studies, I think that's what it was called. And in addition to the fact that the Institute provided its outstanding professors with a lifetime salary, which allowed them to engage in their scientific research without thinking about everyday things. And here is a house presented to a wonderful scientist. Locals say that Albert was characterized by rather unusual tendencies, often walked around the city in his pajamas, but women can seduce. It was here, according to rumors, that the last romantic period of the great scientist with a well-known aristocrat and, it seems, a part-time agent of the Soviet Union's special services, Margarita Konenkova, took place.
So, how difficult is to study here?
I'd say it's pretty difficult. There's definitely an adjustment period. I think you do get better at it as time goes on. But your classes also do get harder, for me at least. I'd say it's pretty difficult. Pretty much most of the time that there's not a lot of free time, but you kind of learn to spend your time. So when I'm not in class and when I'm not doing any kinds of extracurriculars or whatever else I'm doing, you're kind of studying with friends or working, but that's kind of what you get enjoyment out of also. Like, that's kind of just the pace here, is to be studying and to be working on things that you actually enjoy. I think the first year is definitely the hardest for me, at least. And I know it was for a lot of my students, for a lot of my classmates, but it helps that...
How many?
How many classmates?
Yeah.
I think per year there are maybe 1,500 students. Princeton size is what, 6,000? 6,000?
Yeah.
I think first year is hard just because of the adjustment, but it does really make a big difference that everyone here is doing the same thing as you. Everyone here is studying and working hard. So it's not like kind of I'm working hard all day and I'm alone and I don't know what to do. Everyone studies together for a lot of things and everyone works together, so that really, really helps.
What department did you get into?
Здесь не поступаешь на факультеты. Здесь есть...
Here, you don't go into departments. Here you take different classes from different departments, so the only thing you have to choose is a B, BCE, and that is engineering BAC or AB. So you study different, it could be philosophy, it could be politics, it could be physics, it could be biology. This year, let's say this semester I'm taking economics, German, math, and I have ethics and finance Friesman seminar, and I'm choosing already my major, my concentration for my second year of my degree, meaning I have the opportunity to study different disciplines so far. But I myself, when I set up my basement personally, I wanted to study economics, because in my school I really liked the subject of economics. I had a couple of projects with economics. I really liked it. And I continue, and I want to continue doing it too.
Пару проектов с экономикой, и мне это очень нравилось, и я хочу продолжать этим заниматься тоже.
Now let's be specific. You went to a very prestigious school in Astana, right?
Правильно я понимаю?
Ну, она не то, что престижная.
Well, it's not that it's prestigious. It's just very good. It's one of the best schools in Kazakhstan. We have a lot of graduates who got into Ivy League and other universities like MIT. But the point is not the prestige, it's the quality of education. And I really liked my school, and all the teachers were great. So I think those are some of the important factors that kind of shushed me into enrollment.
Зашейпили меня на поступление.
Friends, we had a wonderful opportunity to talk to one of the professors of Princeton University, Oksana Blank. Oksana, hello. Thank you for taking the time for us. Oksana, please tell us about your department.
I work in the Department of Slavic Studies and run the Russian language program here, teaching Russian language and Russian literature to students.
How long have you been teaching at Princeton University?
I've been at Princeton since 2000, so that makes 22 already. A lot, yeah.
In general, has interest in Russian literature and the Russian language changed? Or does it remain stably high, or does it remain stably low? How would you comment on these dynamics?
Я бы сказала, что у нас приблизительно те же цифры.
I would say that we have roughly the same numbers as a few years ago, because students study the language for different reasons. Yes, the political situation is changing, but the reasons are also changing. And some students study Russian because they have read Crime and Punishment. They want to read Dostoevsky in the original. Some are studying Russian because their grandparents are from Russia. Their parents don't speak Russian. Some have a Russian tennis or ballet coach. And somehow, through their coaches, students are interested in the language and then study it. Some percentage goes into politics. Yes, they are interested in Russia for such reasons. But it's like a different specialty, because we have Russian language and literature, and it's like a separate specialty. There's a separate institute that deals with students. We only have courses. Someone gets in by accident. So the reasons are very different.
Причины очень разные, и поэтому...
But interest is consistently high.
Я бы не сказала, что он фантастически высокий. У нас маленькая кафедра по сравнению с другими.
I wouldn't say it's fantastically high. We have a small department compared to other departments, compared to Spanish, for example, because many students studied Spanish at school, so many continue to study it. Besides, Russian is objectively considered by linguists to be more difficult than Spanish, Italian, and French, i.e., to study to pass the language minimum. You have to study Russian for 2 years, while Spanish for 1.5 years, and it is just objectively more difficult to study. Yes, it is more difficult to get good marks. That's why I think this is one of the deterrent factors. But we have a small department, we don't have a lot of students, but the students are good.
Студенты хорошие.
And what are they, who are they, the very students of Princeton? While the competition for a single seat, regardless of department, remains incredibly high, tuition is also, shall we say, among the highest, and, shall we say, Ivy League standing is also a big deal. So, what are they?
Ну вот это крем де ла крем, то есть лучшие студенты, которые...
The best students who studied very well and families were kind of prepared for further education. And sometimes, on the contrary, those who didn't have the opportunity in the family to have access to good education, but are incredibly talented, the university gives scholarships, so there are also such people. There are a lot of foreign students. I don't know the exact numbers, but I know that there are a lot from Europe and even from Russia.
What do you have to do to become a student at Princeton?
Ну, нужно подать документы в университет.
Well, you have to apply to the university, and then I won't tell you the exact details, but I know that a very important role is played by what is called the professional stats. That is, the student writes, well, it is roughly speaking, it is an essay, yes. In addition to the results of SAT exams, it is math and language. This essay plays a very big role because it shows the person, and, in general, it is impossible to simulate it. Parents can't write it better than the student himself. It is always visible with a trained eye, so that attention is paid to it. Attention is paid to different talents, to what the student has been doing. That's why music lessons, successes in sports, play a role not just because the university wants to have a strong team of athletes, but because they realize that if a person has given a lot of time to it and in general succeeded, it means a strong, hardy person. Aspiring with goals, he will succeed further in life. The same is true for those who have studied different instruments or musical instruments or something else. That is, if there is just some genius who only does math, it's kind of a disadvantage.
Это недостаток.
Oksana, you are now slightly destroying myths and stereotypes in American education, because we have always been told that one chooses a certain subject, very narrowly focused, and a person reaches some heights in it. I understand from your speech that it is not quite so.
Совсем нет. Вы, может быть, говорите об...
Maybe you are talking about postgraduate studies, where a person chooses a narrow subject. Let's say he is studying literature and chooses one poet of the 18th century and spends his whole life studying this poet. And as far as ordinary students are concerned, i.e. first, fourth year, no. Even the university has such a policy that in the first year, a student should try different subjects. I know this for sure, because when a person enters here, he has a so-called academic advisor, a teacher with whom he consults what subjects to take, and so on. I've had students like that. Only math, only music a little bit. No, even we were told that this should be stopped, so that the student tries many different subjects. It may turn out that he will be interested in something else and will be talented in it. This is 1-2 course, and then the specialization for 3 years is chosen, but it is not. It is not narrow. And in fact, as if this education of 4 years is not the same as in Russia or in Europe in some countries. Because after that, in general, there is no narrow specialty as such. On the contrary, you need to either gain experience or go to graduate school. It is not enough. It is, on the contrary, such a broad education, and you need to take subjects from different areas of science, language, some courses in mathematics, and so on.
Well, Michael, let's talk about Princeton sports. We are now together where the rowing team is. Let's start with rowing. Why is rowing so popular at Princeton?
Популярная гребля в Принстоне.
У нас, кажется, это довольно старая традиция.
I think it's quite an old tradition here. It's probably all from England, an English tradition, but we take it very seriously too. Now we have just one of the best teams at Princeton, and our coach, she's in charge of not only the Princeton team, but also our U.S. Olympic team, so she's a big specialist.
Большая специалистка.
And other sports, for example, we have not seen here the usual already, it would seem. American soccer? Is it even in Princeton?
Конечно, есть.
Of course there is, very even popular, but they play only once a week. Because as a professional, it is such a brutal sport that you can't play it every day.
What else do students do besides rowing American soccer?
Ну, зависит от сезона, но,
Well, depends on the season, but of course basketball is just now starting baseball, but that's in the spring. Well, almost everyone, I think.
What sports is Princeton the best at?
Наиболее хорош.
У нас традиция баскетбола.
We have a basketball tradition. A very famous coach died recently. He was already in his old age, but it was thanks to him that we have such a good tradition. Although it is difficult to compete with universities, when there are many more students, and we require, of course, quite a serious attitude to study. But nevertheless, we had such a good team that played with all the famous teams and even won.
Командами и даже выигрывал.
You said a serious attitude to study. Well, at the same time, we know that a huge number of universities offer so-called sports scholarships. That is, for very outstanding athletes, but who do not have to be, let us say, intellectually very successful.
But we don't have scholarships like that.
Princeton doesn't have athletic scholarships.
They're not there at all.
То есть в Лиге Плюща не выдают такие там талантливым баскетболистам, футболистам, гребцам.
If a student is bad, he doesn't pass.
And some kind of discount?
Если такой большой талант, тогда...
Well, if he's such a great talent, then say maybe. He's not at such a high level, but he must be at a high enough level or he won't get in. It would be very difficult for such a student at Princeton because the courses are serious.
Потому что курсы все-таки серьезные.
То есть никаких...
I mean, no GPA. I mean, okay, you're a good basketball player. You might have a...
As I said, a little bit helps, of course, as if it helps. If a person is a great violinist, it helps too. But it doesn't make the weather, so to speak.
Погоды, так сказать.
То есть никто за...
So no one's going to help a talented athlete study on purpose?
Нет, надо...
No, you have to... The main thing is that you have to be a good student, and then if you're a good athlete, very good. If you're a good musician. I mean, all that helps. But it's not the main thing. Yes, absolutely.
Said that volleyball helps. How it was?
It helps in terms of you get athletic support to get into school. So you are extremely good in your sport, which is a trade-off for you don't have to get a 1500 SAT score. So they give the opportunity to people who have dedicated their time into athletics, which is a way for the school to like get more people, get spectators, and athletics are in general huge in the US. And it's a trade-off. You've spent so much time into your sport and like developing into the player you are that like we don't expect you to be the perfect student academically.
What and where do graduates of the Slavic Studies Department go to work?
Oh, well, as I already said, yes, 4 years is, in general, such an initial education. Yes. So, well, some people go to graduate school, grad school, and it can be different specialties. Some of us went to Slavic Studies. There are students who barely study in the Slavic Studies department. There are students who go to Northwestern. Have you been there?
Yeah, we've already been to Chicago.
Well, some people go to study other subjects, but that's already considered a good base. There are people who, I don't know, work in the State Department. Someone became an actor. Even two became actors. I mean, all kinds of places.
Professor, I apologize for this question, but there used to be an opinion that Slavic studies is the field of study for agents of the CIA, who are supposed to then go to Russian-speaking countries and undermine them from within.
I can say, as I say, I've been at the university for many years, and there have been cases where I've been approached by the CIA, can I say?
Talented students?
No, the opinion of a former student who wants to just go down that road, I have to say. There aren't many, but it's been in my life. It's quite funny, by the way.
So it's not really a myth?
It's not really a myth, there are such people. But as I say, it's far from a majority, it's a very small number. But it exists.
Да, друзья, вот в таких вот обшарпанных.
Yes, friends, these are the kind of shabby old, century-old dormitories that Princeton University students have to live in. It's like our Arabayevtsi KNU students. They have new modern dormitories, not like here. But seriously, yes, gentlemen, it seems to me that it is a special academic pleasure to study in buildings that have a history of 2 centuries, 1.5 centuries, and to live, most importantly, in exactly the same buildings.
В таких же зданиях это особое академическое удовольствие.
This tradition of naming, has it been around for a long time in the United States? Because we've seen it everywhere. At Berkeley, at Stanford, at Princeton. There's names like the Rockefellers, very famous names.
Why is Harvard University called Harvard? Because there was a man named John Harvard. And he even some minimal money, but at that time it was. Well, I guess.
And Stanford University is also named after its founder.
Вы не задавались вопросом, почему?
Have you ever wondered why in the States it's prestigious? And in our country it's pretty rare for rich people to donate money to education. But here it's somehow the order of the day.
Ну вот в порядке вещей.
Here it is, in the order of things. But we also have such a system that if you do it, there are different benefits. For example, when you pay taxes, it removes. That is, you pay less if you give money, say, for the university. And there is also a point that there are alumni who are grateful and want to somehow return to the university what they receive from the university. There are cases when, let's say, people have made a lot of money, thanks to the fact that they studied at Princeton, so they are grateful.
Oh, that's a very interesting question. Is studying at universities like Princeton, Ivy League universities in general, is it more about knowledge or is it more about networking? I mean, is it more about the connections that you make when you go to these institutions?
Well,
networking is, of course, a serious case, certainly. Well, it was probably talked about more in the past than it is now, because in the past, there were mostly quite rich people who studied together and helped each other. Now they're even looking for ways to separate the rich students, so...
But if we take Princeton now, is it still, let's say, an educational institution for the children of the elite, for the so-called American hereditary aristocracy? Or is it still possible to meet here and...
Now everything is changing, in my opinion, for the better, because it was really like that before, that these are the children of the elite, but now it is completely different. And now they are even looking for, as I said, students who are the first in the family to go to university. That is what they are looking for.
Tell me, in such a case, if a person lives in some distant country, let's take, for example, a Central Asian country, if he/she passes SAT, it's an English language math exam, and if he/she writes this good motivation letter, does he/she have a chance to get in?
If he speaks English, then yes, of course, absolutely.
And that's as of recently?
Yeah, and he can get a scholarship.
Listen, some miracles, some motivational miracles, guys. Listen, run to learn English. What exams and tests did you take to get into Princeton?
There's the SAT. It's like in Kazakhstan, there's the US SAT. It's basically the American SAT. But for the year I was applying, it was pandemic. And so in the pandemic, the SAT was an optional test, meaning you could apply with or without the SAT. Before the pandemic, you could only apply with the SAT, meaning if you didn't have an SAT score, you couldn't sell. I had the opportunity to not take the SAT, but I decided something that taking the SAT would be important to me. And I'm glad I took the SAT, and because it helped me grow as a person. It's not just a test, it's a real opportunity to understand what level of academic education I have in college. Because I'm reading texts for my freshman seminar for economics, solving math problems, that's exactly what was on the SAT, and it's really helped me to get in tune with the right intellectual level in my studies.
How much did you specifically study for the SAT?
I can honestly say that for the Kazakhstani format, it is a very different test. It is very different from what we took in Kazakhstan. I was preparing for 2 years purposefully for SAT. That is, I was preparing every day.
With a tutor?
Репетиторы очень важны. Я честно скажу, но
Tutors are very important. I'll be honest, but tutors are important in the beginning. One of my strategies was to get a tutor to understand the system, what it is, because it was a very new test for me. And once I started to understand what it was, I started solving the tests and it became easier to solve the problems. And understanding of the test improved a lot. But tutors are very helpful because it's an American test. It's not a Kazakhstani test. You have to solve it with people who know the system. And one advice I can give is to solve a lot of practice tests. That is, I had a book like this. There were 10 practice tests. I solved them all, made a reflection on my mistakes, improved myself using online resources to further understand how to correct these mistakes. And that helped me a lot in this test. Another one we had was IB exam, that is, my school is the only school from the niche network in Kazakhstan, which has an official IB program. IB is International Baccalaureate. It is an International Baccalaureate, a program of European education, which includes a choice of 6 subjects in the last 2 years of your school, where you deepen your knowledge of these disciplines and then take a very intensive international test on them, which is manifested in Switzerland or in Liechtenstein.
Международный тест, который проверяется в Швейцарии или в Лихтенштейне.
Did you turn this one in too?
Да.
English. TOEFL IELTS?
Я сдавал IELTS в...
I took IELTS in 9th grade, but I just started taking IELTS for fun, to get a feel for what it was like. I got a 7. But that was 9th grade. Then I didn't take IELTS because there was a pandemic, but then again everyone had university, you didn't have to take IELTS. The good thing about my school was that for 5 years, from 7th to 12th grade, we studied in English. That is, the instruction of the lessons was in English. It was kind of already considered a level of English that was passed for universities. I also took the Dowling test, which I scored a level 8 on ELTS, and that got accepted into the university. But participation in summer programs, let's say I participated in the Yale University program, summer program, and I was also nominated by my school to participate in the Johns Hopkins summer program. So it also shows universities that you're ready to take collegiate level classes in English.
Уроки как бы коллегиального уровня на английском языке.
Look, here you say optional was the SAT, optional was the English test. Then what was the key thing that got you into Princeton was the essay?
I mean, why did Princeton pick me?
I mean, yeah, what did you do that Princeton, among the huge number of people who want to get in here, chose Jangir from Astana?
Well, there are 3 main factors here. It's a feat, it's a holistic review, and it's a backgrounder.
Explain everything.
Feat is the university's realization that you are right for them. How does that manifest itself? It manifests itself through the activities that you've done. That is, your extracurricular activities, your school activities that you've done throughout your school career. And here I was, when I was applying, a lot of people told me that it's a lottery, admission is a lottery, it's all about luck. I, on the one hand, understood that when 40,000 people apply, a little bit more than 1,000 accept university. Definitely there's like a huge number of applicants and candidates for admission. They're definitely very good candidates for admission. You can take them, but the university, they have like a limited number of students that they can take. So for the first place, there can be maybe about equal people in terms of education. But what sets them apart is feat, the way they approach the spirit of the university. Let's say, for me, I considered what I approach the spirit of Princeton, because one of the main goals of Princeton and helping the community. That's what I did at my school. And so I think that's what I think will help me stand out and find a fit with the university. I mean, it's like you find a match in a relationship. I mean, there's a guy and a girl, you might like a girl, you might like her, she might be smart, beautiful, but sometimes it just doesn't match. And in terms of universities, it's the same way. You can be a very good student with a great GPA, 1400 with 1600, but there's just no match. I mean, it's shown through essays too. And this is where the holistic review comes in. So they check your essay, and your English, and your SAT, and your GPA, and in general, your character. So what matters here is your character, how you show yourself, what your values are, what you want to do in life. If you write an essay saying, I want to go to Harvard because it's the most prestigious university, and everyone there will envy me, that doesn't work. You have to show why Harvard and you fit together, and that's shown through the essay, through your values, and how your values elide, that is, how they converge with the university, and the fact that when you come on campus, you can use all the resources that the university gives you. This can be shown through how you in school use your resources. That is, whether you used the resources that the school gave you, whether you used, let's say, the teaching opportunities that the school gave you. Let's say we had opportunities in school for Olympiads, did you use them? And the third is the context. That is, it is clear that for a person from Kazakhstan and for a person, let's say, from England, they will have different contexts and different opportunities for enrollment. And they understand that if in Kazakhstan you have achieved, let's say, some high level, but in England a person has achieved a little bit higher than you, then the Kazakhstani level will be considered still very strong, even if you have not achieved such a level, because it depends on what resources there are in Kazakhstan. Obviously in Kazakhstan there are not as many academic and, in general, financial resources as in England. But if you were able to achieve something in Kazakhstan or in any country in Central Asia, it already shows that when you come here, on campus, you will be able to achieve even more.
В Казахстане или в любой стране Центральной Азии, то это уже показывает то, что когда ты придешь сюда на кампус, ты сможешь достичь еще больше.
In general, there are quite a few temples on the campus of Princeton University, but here we are now, perhaps, in one of the most beautiful chapels. It is dedicated to one of the presidents of Princeton University, who with his tireless labors, as it is written here, contributed to the appearance of this temple, apparently actively collected funds for its construction. And in general, there are a great number of memorial inscriptions here. There is even a plaque erected by alumni in memory of Martin Luther King. What's that beautiful glass building behind us, Michael?
Ну, это центр искусств, там занимаются разными видами искусств. Вот.
Well, it's an arts center. They do different kinds of arts there. That's where the musicians practice, I don't know, piano, violin, and so on. But there's also a part for drama, for actors, another part for painting, where again it's taken very seriously. You can't do it exclusively, of course, at Princeton.
Заняться исключительно, конечно, в Принстоне.
Music or art?
That is, you can be a musician, but then only the composition, the idea, the history of music. That is, you can't be a performer, but there are opportunities for those who want to. Sometimes there are, play at us, let's say, at a very high level.
What are your extracurricular activities?
I play the cello, so I am in a couple of orchestras. I'm in one of the orchestras, which is Sinfonia, which is like a symphony orchestra. And then last year, I was in a chamber orchestra as well.
Does it help in your study, or?
I think it's important to have something to do other than just studies. If all you're doing is classes, you will spend all of your time on classes. It doesn't mean that you have much more free time. You need to have other things to also put your energy into, because that you know, things that you enjoy, things that you're doing just because you want to, not because you feel like you have to.
Do you more accept classes, accept cello?
In my free time, I like to, practicing and playing music is very important for me in terms of kind of putting my time here and what I do into context and kind of remembering what the different things are I all like to do. But I do spend much more of my time studying.
Any parties?
Any parties? Some. I'm not, personally, I'm not huge on like the parties and the eating clubs here. Eating clubs are a big...
How do you spend your free time? Have you free time?
Princeton has changed me, so I spend my free time reading books or hang out with friends. It's either of those two. I canceled my Netflix subscription. I'm not watching TV anymore. It's just books and reading and educating myself, or just for pleasure.
That's not boring?
No, not at all. Like, it sounds like it would be boring, but then it's not.
Any parties?
Sorry.
Parties?
Yeah. So I have really close friends here, and it's been great because people are just so outgoing, and they're such bright minds here, and you connect with people on a different intellectual level.
Здесь, кстати, очень хорошая именно социальная жизнь. Мне здесь очень нравится.
Well, here, by the way, the social life is very good. I like it here very much. I usually go with my friends to a coffee shop. There is one here. We go there, or just walk around. Usually the most fun is going to D Street. There's an avenue here. There's mansions. There's an eating clubs. Eating clubs is kind of a community of upperclassmen. That is 2, 3, 4-year students. Where exactly 3, 4-year students, some of them live there, they eat there. It's kind of a social club where all your friends are. And from Thursday to Sunday, there's a party every night, like a party.
It's all grown up, isn't it?
Well, not everything is exactly like that. It's still Princeton, kind of Princeton style.
How you hanging out? Tell me a little bit, share a little bit.
I didn't go to many parties in Kazakhstan. I like to dance. But here I love going to parties where there is music that I like. For example, I listen to American rap. There is Travis Scott, and we had a party, and there was one of my favorite songs, and we just marched there like that. But the vacation here is very adequate, without any substance abuse or anything. Everyone here is adequate. Everyone just wants to have fun, to blow off steam.
Friends, well, honestly, once again, we are convinced of the hospitality, the amazing human attitude of American people. But this is not just an American person. This is, I remind you, a professor at Princeton University. Michael, give us a little tour of your cozy, beautiful home.
Okay, so this is the living room where we ate.
And drank before.
A little bit, yeah? And where it can sit, and we've got the kitchen next door.
Look, it's a pretty spacious kitchen. Is that the American way to do it?
Yeah, it's very distinctive.
Yeah, I mean, it's a classic American kitchen with a huge cutting table to cook on. Look, I'm really jealous of you, Michael.
Yeah, this is, by the way, when we bought this house about 20 years ago, the first thing we built a kitchen here because there was a small kitchen that we didn't like.
But listen, is real estate where you live expensive?
Yes, Princeton is expensive because, well, anything close to the university is expensive.
I'm not that Yuri Dud, but there's this Russian journalist, and he always asks this question head on. How much do you earn? How much does a simple American professor of Slavic studies, Russian Slavic studies, have to earn to live in a house like this?
Well, when we bought this house, it wasn't that expensive. It was much cheaper. We bought 20 years ago. Since then, everything has gotten very expensive in Princeton, and we probably wouldn't have been able to afford a house like this.
Is real estate here expensive at all?
Yes, yes.
Is it just Princeton University?
Yeah, with Princeton, because if you go at least, 5 kilometers, it's a lot cheaper too.
Let's take a look in here. It's a little dark. This is where you watch movies with your family.
Basically, yes, but actually to watch television, we have to have a cable program to watch TV. We don't pay for it, so nobody ever watches it. It's like just decoration.
Ваша супруга...
Your wife is a terrific musician, and we heard her playing beautifully at dinner tonight. I understand that not only your wife, but your youngest son is also involved in music, right?
Младший сын тоже занимается музыкой.
Да. Вот, и мы пристроили это.
Yeah, and we only added this room a year ago or 2 years ago just to have a place to play music.
Место музицировать.
How hard is it to get something here? Because we have heard that you have to go through, well, practically bureaucratic hell to afford something like this.
Да, но это было непросто. Надо сказать, если мы добавили
Yes, it wasn't easy, I should say. If we added even one more foot, it would have been impossible. But we did the maximum that is allowed without a special permit. So, well, still, it's complicated and an architect was needed.
Тем не менее, это сложно. И нужен был архитектор, и еще...
Michael, in our view, is this bureaucracy justified in the States?
Ну, наверное, потому что...
Well, I guess because if anyone can build anything they want, well, it's just going to be total chaos, yeah.
Да.
What a magnificent library you have.
Да, это...
Yeah, we're the ones with too many books. So I built this.
Вот это.
Oh, that's my son?
That's your son back, isn't it? We'll say hello to him and get to know him. By the way, does he read? Everyone complains nowadays that young people don't read.
He hardly ever reads. He's not interested.
What do you think about this as a literature teacher?
Yeah, but it's really pathetic. But we have 3 boys, and they're all... I mean, the first one reads, actually.
Your oldest son is how old?
He's 24.
So he's still reading?
He reads because when he was a boy, it was still normal. And after him.
It is very difficult to answer the question of a young person, a 16, 18-year-old IT worker who already earns more than you. Yes. And you say to him, ouch, 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 how uneducated you are. And he asks you why. Here's how you would answer a young, successful worker in IT to the question, why do I need to read?
Заставляет думать. И часто эти молодые, которые...
Well, for pleasure, of course, it makes you think, and often these young people who earn huge, huge amounts of money, they don't think about anything but money. And that is, well, maybe, on the one hand, it's good. But on the other hand, that something is missing. And this is a friend of mine. She plays brilliantly, by the way.
Truly, the sounds are enchanting. You know, I'm deeply impressed by the fact that when we were at Stanford, we saw Rodin's real work. Here I'm looking at it and I can't believe it. Pablo Picasso. How did that happen, Michael?
Как так получилось, Майкл?
Да, но здесь написано...
Yes, but it says here it's the John Putnam Foundation. Well, John Putnam was an alumnus of this university. Apparently really enjoyed the time he spent here and decided, but I don't know. Maybe he got rich. Maybe he was rich from the beginning. I don't know. Decided to give very large sums of money to one thing. The sculptures, the statues that were on the street here. On campus, there's a lot of them. I mean, we have a lot of statues, very famous sculptors. So, when you walk around, they're everywhere. And this is the most famous here in the sculptor of the world in general.
What's it like to work in a place where you go out and you have Picasso, I don't know, Rodin at arm's length?
Да, да, у нас, кстати, есть...
Yes, by the way, we have a university museum with Van Gogh, for example. Yes, it's amazing. The collection is wonderful, by the way. They're rebuilding it now, so you can't...
перестраивают, поэтому нельзя.
That's all university property?
Да, да. И это именно почти все в музее, это как раз...
Yes, yes, and it's almost everything in the museum. It's just from graduates who then decided to donate what they inherited or bought themselves. I don't know. Well, all in all, it's not a bad collection at all. And yes, it's nice when, of course, you go and see these things. And Princeton is a safe enough place that no one worries that some hooligans...
Any incidents of vandalism?
No, I don't think so.
America almost 4 years, right?
It's 1 year.
Only 1 year?
Yeah.
The fresh view. What's the best in America?
Oof. I feel like the mindset of Americans is the best thing because they have a mentality of there is no loser mentality. It's we're always getting something. If we take a loss, we'll learn from it, and everything is like beneficial to them. And I didn't have that mentality, and I think it's something great. Like I didn't get to start on my sport, and I was like, well, what am I playing for when I'm not like playing during the games? But it's you get to play with your friends, you get to get better every single day, and that growth mentality is something that's very like specific to Americans, I feel like.
What's the worst thing about American?
Sometimes, okay, first of all, junk food. And the freshman 15 pounds are nice. But I would say they also have a culture of being like too nice sometimes. They won't speak their minds just so they don't hurt your feelings sometimes. And I feel like the rest of the world is like more direct. So sometimes you have relationships with people that aren't as genuine, and that could be tricky.
Is this your first time in America?
Oh no, I've been to New York and LA before, but as a tourist.
Now you're studying here, tell me, what's the best thing about America?
Образование.
Education. To be honest, I really like here exactly what kind of knowledge is given, and what kind of professors and students. There is a huge number of people from America and from different countries of the world on this campus. And I think one of the advantages of the USA is the diversity of opinion, diversity of backgrounds, people from different countries, different cultures with different thoughts, and it is the exchange of this knowledge, exchange of these cultures, that helps you to grow as a person.
Обмен этими культурами, он помогает тебе вырасти как человек.
Что самое худшее в Америке?
Worst moment?
It is not the worst, but it is worse than the food in Kazakhstan. It's very difficult for me to get used to. Here's the idea, because they have breakfast with absolutely no meat. And I'm used to eating at least chicken for breakfast. Yes, I'm used to eating at least chicken for breakfast. Yes, Sherpa. But here they eat waffles, omelet. I'm not used to that. I'd like to have a Kazakh-style dastarkhan in the morning. That would be cool.
What could you advise to the people who want to enter Princeton?
I would say just you have to be really focused. You have to be a great like member of society, just a great human being. Definitely like do a lot of things outside of school. It's not just academics. You do like charity work, or you work with kids, older people, and just try to be the best person that you could be for SET, because that's what Princeton wants. Princeton doesn't just select the smartest people. The university tries to get like the people who have the biggest impact in the world. And you should show that you're one of those people.
What is your American dream?
The American dream? My dream is to be happy, to just enjoy life, and what goals I have, achieve them.
One thing that sets Princeton apart from all other universities?
От всех других университетов.
From all the other universities? Maybe academic excellence. People here are much more academically intensive. I wouldn't say much more so than other Ivy League universities. But here, definitely the level that the university requires of us in terms of your knowledge and your labor, in terms of your preparation for your classes, it's very different, and here, you have to try to study hard.
Was it hard for you to adapt at all?
I'll be honest, it was difficult. That is, communicating with people. I used to make fun of them saying how they were doing, just when they were walking. I got used to it, I say that now too. But at first they would tell me how they were doing. I would stop and start saying, "I'm fine, how are you?" They would go on like, "Okay, see you later." I was like, "Okay."
As the famous, why do they really want to know how I'm doing?
Еще американцы часто говорят sorry.
And also Americans often say sorry. That is, let's say you are standing in line to get food, they can, if they see that you are already waiting a little bit, they say something like, "Sorry you are waiting." There is no such thing in Kazakhstan. Let's say, in Kazakhstan, they just take it and go. But here they put it on and say sorry, or if you go to each other and, let's say too close to each other, they say sorry. People are very polite here. In Kazakhstan, they are also polite, but we have a different mentality when you talk to a stranger.
Well, and I guess it's from you as our, who's got it all worked out, who's over here at Принстон, give some advice to dudes and do betties.
Я бы сказал, берите именно
I would say take it, do what you like, but not in terms of what you like. If you like watching movies, and you will spend hours watching movies, but do what you like. But do something that benefits society. Because first of all, it helps you broaden your horizons, and it helps you understand your purpose in life. If you do something that helps the community or helps even your family, you already start to understand what steps you need to take to achieve your goals in the future. And always be very friendly. That's one of the main tips. There are people here, let's say I saw the Prince of Kuwait here recently at one seminar, but not in terms of being selfish, to be friendly, to make acquaintances just like that. There are a huge number of people here who have very high potential, and you should always be friendly even in Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan, and try to communicate with everybody, to be in good relations with everybody here.
Очень высокий потенциал, и надо всегда быть дружелюбным, даже в Казахстане, в Кыргызстане, и стараться общаться со всеми быть на хороших отношениях. Вот.
One reason, just one reason, to go to Princeton.
Я думаю, что
I think the advantage of Princeton is that it's a relatively small university. So if a student wants to know his professors, it's very easy, it's very simple. For example, at Harvard, if I give a lecture, I never meet with students. I just read, and then graduate students meet with them. But at Princeton, it's not allowed. It turns out if I give a lecture, I have to meet with the students as well, I mean in a small group. So I think that's a big advantage.
Hi.
Hi, sorry to bother you.
That's okay. Will you be taking pictures?
No, we're making a video.
Shooting video.
Хорошо.
Really? Oh my gosh. Great, bravo, bravo.
This is a pianist who teaches at Princeton because we have very serious music teachers, pedagogues, that is, and also students, very advanced. And here's Francina, playing all over the world. She's Canadian, but she's playing solo concertos in Europe and so on. I know her because my wife is also in that department, but she just plays brilliantly, in my opinion.
Who you want to become in future?
Who do I want to become in the future? I look up to my parents a lot, and I think they did a very good job of spending a lot of time with our family and raising a good family and kind of putting that above everything else, but also setting a fantastic example for me in terms of career, in terms of studies, of your education is the most important thing you will ever do for yourself. It is the most important investment. So kind of not really compromising on either of those. And we immigrated to the United States. So that is from Venezuela. And so that was, watching my parents have to work incredibly hard was a big example for me. I'd say in the future, I mean, I want to be a successful engineer. I want to be someone who feels like I do a lot of important work. I'd like to be at the top of my studies, but also be able to balance that with all of the other important things in life.
Finally, we breathe in the Princeton air and hope, we hope, that we have been able to motivate you to study foreign languages and achieve academic results, and to become students of the best universities on the planet. We also hope that we say to this beautiful city, to this magnificent university, not goodbye, but goodbye, and that we will have many opportunities to come here and make a report about your achievements, about how you entered, achieved unprecedented successes, and are ready to return to our homeland so that both Kyrgyzstan and all of Central Asia would resemble such corners of America. It is never too late to learn and as Vladimir Lenin bequeathed, with whom we may not agree in everything, but here we definitely agree with him. To learn again, because knowledge is power.
Это сила.